Nina Marche, and this is You Plus Happy. Each week, I bring you someone who challenges us to define happiness and success on their own terms with a dose of laughter. Remember to subscribe, like, share the episode. It really helps the channel, and it helps that I can keep doing this and bringing you great guests every week. This week, we have Madison Hatfield, writer, actor, director, filmmaker, creator of I Could Dom, a sex comedy for people pleasers. And all her contact info will be in the show notes. It will say it at the end of the show, so you have to stick around. Welcome to the show, Madison.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here today.
I'm glad you're here. Madison's a big deal, y'all. She's a big deal, so definitely check out her work. This is my first time meeting you.
Yeah.
We met on, we didn't meet, but I saw her on a panel, and everything you said was so impressive and so helpful and good, and I want to get into that, but yeah, so just telling people behind the scenes, she does a lot.
I do a lot, yes. Whether or not that makes one a big deal, I'm not sure, but if that is the metric, then yeah, maybe I'm the biggest deal of all. Like that's
You're so humble.
Yeah. Typical.
So we'll jump in. How did you get started in this world?
So in the industry that I'm in now, and I'm mostly doing film, I came in a weird door. I actually went to school for biology. I was a high school science teacher, so I taught in a public school here in Atlanta for 4 years. And I started doing live comedy as a way to make friends. And so I was doing a lot of sketch and improv and some stand-up. And then, people started putting their sketches on film. And I was meeting people who were making, short films or feature films. And I had always been somewhat interested, obviously, in performing. I love making people laugh. And I was getting more into writing as well. And, I think I just hit a point where I realized that there was this other side of myself that I was really interested in exploring further. And it's really hard to do another job while teaching. It takes so much out of you. And yeah, I think I just realized that I was going to really regret it if I didn't try to live my life more aligned with this other passion that I had. So I left teaching and went to work at an independent children's bookstore. Shout out to Little Shop of Stories in Decatur. It was an amazing job to have, and they always knew that writing and acting and, that I was getting into directing and filmmaking, that was my passion. And so they, it was a lot more flexible than being in the classroom for sure. And so I did that for about 5 years. And then, I guess for the last 3.5 years, I've only been acting, writing, and directing, and that's how I've been, making my money. And then obviously, there's a lot of, you're piecing together odd jobs here and there, but it's felt really affirming and good to be able to just, with every year, kind of align my life more and more with this, this industry and this work, but it also is obviously something that I really love. So it makes me feel good about it was a scary leap to leave something so stable. And it's still day to day, it's still very scary, lots of chaos, but because of all the people I've gotten to meet and the things I've gotten to do, I feel good about taking that leap when I did.
Yeah. What has made you feel affirmed on this journey?
Oof. I think that I'm affirmed by the relationships that I've built. I got into this because I was trying to make friends.
Right.
And I think that that's such a solid basis for getting into anything, which means that, the people that I meet and come to know and love are a huge part of making me feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing and I'm in the right place. So I'm really affirmed by the relationships that I've built. I'm obviously affirmed by the work that I've been able to create with those people. We are, scrappy independent filmmakers, and it's hard and it's chaotic, but what we're able to make is something that will literally outlive us, which is wild to think about, and that I'm really proud of. So that's a part of it. And then I will say that I think anyone who says that external validation is not a part of their affirming repertoire is lying. I think that we really are given gifts by people who are in positions of, whether it's power or, at least just a level of expertise or experience, when those people take the time to express their admiration of you, to express that they've noticed what you've done and want to provide you either with an opportunity or with advice, or just, with a friendly conversation, like that really matters a lot. And I know, thinking about I Could Dom, that was a scrappy independent short film that we made. I got to partner with Wax and Wayne, which is a local company here in Atlanta, for the first time, and we just had such a great time on set, and the casting crew we had was so incredible. And we've had Happy Bad Bungalow, which is a production company run by Billy Magnuson and Ann Hollister and Shane Andrews. They've come on as executive producers because they saw it and they really liked it, and they wanted to be sort of a part of the journey because it is a proof of concept. And these are people who have worked on films and shows and created their own work, written their own work at a level that is really inspiring to me. They have the kind of careers that I look at and I'm like, oh, that's kind of what I want to be doing. And when you have people like that see your work, and not only the work itself, but also you as a person and a creator, and I just thought that they saw so immediately what I was trying to do and what I have achieved and what I'm capable of. That is so powerful. And then to not only like express that to me, but then come on and be a part of the team, that's certainly a gift that I'll like spend my life repaying, because it not only helps this project, but it also helps me. Like, I'm now a person who feels more affirmed in what I do because someone at that level who I also admire is like on the same page as me, which is so wild. Like that's such a gift. Thank you, Billy Ann and Shane. Happy Bad Bungalow. Love you guys so much.
And I think too, it's these people know what it takes, right? So the people that aren't in it, I get a lot of support, and I'm so appreciative. But it does, and it's not better or worse. It just feels a little different when that person knows what it takes to build yourself up and all the steps that it takes to get there. So it just feels it's a lot different, I feel like.
Yeah, it's just a different kind of affirmation, right? I feel so strongly, and I think Issa Rae talks about horizontal networking as opposed to vertical, and this idea that we should be building our communities with people who are in the same shit that we are. And I don't know if I can curse on this. I'm so sorry.
Please do.
But the people who are in the shit with you, like that's your community. But then every once in a while, in the same way that Larry Wilmore was there for her, and then HBO was able to turn her web series into one of the best shows, according to me, of the past decade. Those relationships are obviously also very, very important. But I think that sometimes, especially in this business, there is an overemphasis on the networking that is vertical, where it's like, oh, I need to be talking to that person up there who has that thing. And I think that just, first of all, pulls our focus away from the community that's already around us. Second of all, it leads to this vibe for yourself of like constant desperation, rejection, because those people are busy. They're busy up there. I know they are. That's why they're up there, because they're busy. So you're also like always striving for something, and then you're putting all your sort of eggs in this basket that you actually don't have any control over. You don't know how those people are going to feel about you. And so I think that my journey has been to really come to love the people around me. And I think when I focus on that and work in that space, what we're able to create speaks for itself. And then the people who are in a different place in their career are able to see that, and they don't need me to pitch them. They've seen what we've done. And so I think that's been my path. And obviously, like, everybody's different. And I'm sure a lot of people have gotten really, really great results from vertical networking, but for me, it's not natural for me. And so I know that I feel kind of weird in those situations, and I'm like, we have one life. I'm not going to continually put myself in situations that feel weird. So I'm going to just hang out with my friends and make stuff, and then see what happens.
I think going about things in a natural way and what feels right is really, really, really important.
Yeah.
And what was I going to say? Oh, so you're letting your resume speak for itself, kind of, when you get when those folks that are a little, I don't even want to say above, but they have more access to things.
For whatever reason, their career has put them in a place where they have more access, maybe more creative control, maybe, you know, a longer resume, more opportunities, whatever it is. I don't want to say above me either. We're all people doing the thing.
What is your approach when you do meet them? Because I know they see your work, but when you get in the room, how are you moving in that room? Any differently? Any tips?
I really feel, because I'm an actor too, and I think that auditioning has taught me a lot about life and how I want to exist, because it's such a nightmare. I've learned through my acting career that when I am auditioning, the first person I am trying to delight is always myself. And so when I get the audition, I look at it and I'm like, okay, what's the most fun version of this for me? Or what's the most interesting version of this for me? And I'm going to do that version because at the end of the day, they are hiring a full person, and I bring a certain perspective and skill set to the table. And I'm not going to try to retool who I am for this job interview, essentially, because that's dishonest. It's like, if you want me in this role, then I'm going to show you exactly what I want to do with this role. And I think that it's the same with meeting people and collaborators. If I'm trying to make myself what I think they want to be and say the things I think, like, eventually the real me's gonna pop out. And they're gonna be like, oh, what did we do? Who's this weird girl? So I think that I just really, especially as I've gotten older, I'm about to be 35, I just always, it's like important to me to show up as myself as best I can. And obviously we get nervous and we're not the exact same in every situation, and sometimes we can't be our full, you know, like there are rules of decorum that we must follow. But I think for me, I want to be as true to myself as possible, because eventually your true self is gonna come out, and you don't want anyone feeling surprised. And I like the idea that people, when they meet me in whatever situation, they know what they're gonna get in the next situation and the next situation. And I think, my resume speaks for itself, but I also think that I speak for myself. I think that part of why I've gotten some of the opportunities I've gotten is because I'm a person that people want to be around, and that's not a performance that I'm putting on. I think it's just I like what I do, and I like being around people, and I do really want to be someone that people look forward to working with. And if they haven't worked with me yet, that's something that they're, you know, excited to do someday. And if they've already done it, then they're like, I would love to do that again. Like that to me is such a goal, you know, a mark of success on my own terms, for sure.
How did you get there? Because I know
how?
Because it's not what you're saying. You're making it sound easy, right? And it's not.
No.
So that's commendable, but and it's something I think you should be. Well, I can't say what you do, but I would be proud of that. But it's not easy.
No.
And I can't imagine it's always been this way.
No.
Okay.
No.
So how did you get there?
No. I mean, I think that we are, all of us, up against various messaging about what is wrong with us all the time.
Oh my gosh. Every day.
Every day. It is exhausting. I know for me personally, like stuff around bodies, especially as a child, because the word that I use for myself is fat, and so I'm going to use it, but I want everyone to know that it's my chosen word, and I don't see it as a bad thing. But I was a fat kid. I grew into a fat adult. No one is particularly surprised, but I know that for me, there was a lot of messaging around what was wrong with my body, and what a fucking, like, this is my vessel, like this is how this is it, and so what a thing to be told is wrong basically all the time. So for me, I know that there was an element of really examining those messages
Mhm.
and where are they coming from and what are they rooted in? And so often these stories were being told about who and what we need to be and how we need to behave and what we need to look like. They're rooted in somebody trying to make money.
Yes.
And so,
Yes.
and it's like, and the people at the top making that money tend to fall into very specific kinds of boxes of, you know, people who have a value system that has systemically oppressed and harmed a lot of people who don't look like them and don't come from the same background. And so when I sat and realized that really what I was up against was somebody trying to make money, I started to take a frankly like rebellious
Yeah.
approach to loving myself.
Mhm.
I realized that being content with who I am and how I look and how I present, whatever, it is a rebellion against people who kind of deserve to be rebelled against. And so it is a long process, and there's an element of faking it until you make it.
Mhm.
There were years where I was telling myself a story about self-love, about self-compassion, and it was not true. And then because you're telling yourself this story over and over again, your brain slowly starts to rewire itself.
Mhm.
And suddenly it feels a little less like a lie or an exaggeration or twee or what, you know, like it
Yeah.
starts to feel like, oh yeah, no, this is just how I feel about myself. And so I do encourage people, because I know so many people who struggle with anxiety and struggle with showing up authentically in
Yeah.
any situation. They let, you know, nerves get the best of them. They feel like they're not good enough for this. They don't look right for this. They don't sound right for this, whatever. And my advice is like, what if you just started telling yourself that you were, you know, like that. What if you started just saying that to yourself, and then even just that lie
Mhm.
is powerful.
Mhm.
And if you can be consistent with that practice, it will stop feeling like a lie. And I think as women especially, but I obviously don't want to say that this doesn't affect men too, but we are really like steered away from confidence, especially like open, abject, unapologetic confidence. And what a crime. Like
real.
what a crime against anybody who
Yeah.
is steered away from that, because our self perspective is like at the end of the day all we have, right? If I'm in an empty vacuum of a room, I still have the ability to reflect on myself and speak about myself and think about myself. And what am I doing if I'm using that energy to be mean?
Yeah.
And so obviously I have I love to grow. I love to learn. I fuck up constantly. I make mistakes a lot. But there is a difference between making a mistake and using that as an opportunity to punish myself or reaffirm some negative self-worth that I was already, this story I was already weaving in my, like, of course you did that.
Yeah.
Of course you didn't get that, because why would you? Versus, okay, like I learned from that, I didn't get that. Rejection has been so powerful for me because I get rejected through acting usually all the time. And yeah, it just becomes so commonplace that I'm like, okay. And a thing I've started saying, which is unhinged, but I like it, is every time I don't get something, I sit with it for a second, and then I tell myself they'll regret that. And then I move on.
Love it.
And it's like, I don't know if they will or not, but that's the kind of like delusional like thinking that helps me just let shit go and think like the better yes is coming, the right yes is coming.
I love that. I love that so much. And what you said about who because the story we tell ourselves is going to dictate what we're going to go after.
Yeah.
And what options are available to us, you know? So it's so important. And I wonder how often because, for me, I have to build myself up regularly. It's not just a one-time thing.
No.
And especially as our bodies change too, right? Because I'm getting older. Some things are going to change. Some things, gravity is going to have its way.
We are all at the whim of gravity at this point.
Like,
oh my
what
god.
am I going to do? Because that's something else to process, because, you know, aging in our society is not acceptable.
No.
So especially in this industry, it's like an extra layer of not being acceptable.
Yeah.
So those are things that constantly telling ourselves. And what you said about lying to yourself, the people, what got put into your brain in the beginning was a lie.
Yes.
So you just so just tell yourself another one.
Yeah, it's a new better lie.
That's gonna help you.
Exactly. Yeah, we've all been fed fiction about what is beautiful, what is success, what is power. You know, we have been lied to consistently, and it's, you know, we're talking about centuries old shit. Like it's not new. It's the same sort of harm retooled over and over again. And yeah, I think that there is something so powerful about, as a whole, realizing that we can, at least for ourselves, and then we slowly let it seep into our communities around us, we can start telling a different story that's actually more reflective of what it means to be a person.
Yeah.
Because we're all different. We're not all meant to be the same. We're not all meant to be young forever, and we're not all meant to be thin, and we're not all meant to be white, and we're not all, you know, like, we're not all meant to do, like, we, you know, at the end of the day, we're like animals on a rock spinning through, you know, endless, maybe, space. Space is so scary. I don't want to talk about it. But like, you know, like, I think that there is this industry especially, it can be so easy to lose perspective and focus on the wrong things, or just, you know, shit that doesn't matter.
Right.
And yeah, I think telling ourselves our own story that is kinder and more compassionate, it makes us kinder to ourselves, and also I think it makes me kinder to other people as well, which is, you know, I think always a generally good thing to do.
True.
Being kind.
Yeah, and I didn't realize, like, being confident helps me be kind.
Yes.
Because like, when I feel bad about myself, I close off and get into this shell, and then I'm kind of standoffish towards people. Yeah. And that's not going to get you anywhere anyway. Yeah. So again, like, with the story that you tell yourself is going to, what you believe about yourself is going to let you be delusional and show up in these spaces and potentially live your dream. Yes. If you just get delusional and believe in yourself, just be delulu.
It's like the thesis of this whole thing.
Yes. I wanted to touch, way back to when you said you were teaching. And and like you said, it's not easy working a full-time job and then pursuing something else that takes a lot out of you. Yeah. How did you do that, and how long was it before you said, I'm gonna leave teaching? Because I know you said you did it for 4 years.
Yeah, for 4 years. Yeah. So I, you know, again, when I started performing as an adult, it really was like something fun to do, to meet people and to try to like build a new community outside of where I was working. Because I do think that our American society especially overemphasizes work. And, you know, oh yeah, well, you can just be friends with the people that you work with. And I obviously, like, you need to have friends at your job, like you should, like, that's nice. But I also think that it's so important in whatever field we're in to have balance and to feel like you have a life outside of whatever you're doing, which gets even more complicated, I think, when your passion becomes your job, and I can get to that in a second. But, you know, so I was doing it as a way to make friends, and I just, you know, I was young. I was like, 22, 23, coming out of college, so I had the energy to, like, work all day at school and then, you know, go to improv practice or class, and then I was starting to do shows, you know, like I was definitely burning the candle at both ends, but at that time I was young, like I could do that. And because I wasn't viewing it as a job at that time at all. I didn't view it as even like a dream for a while, you know, like I think because it started in that way, it really seamlessly started to build up in my life as a more and more important part of who I was and what I did. And then it actually, like, I'll be honest, I wish that I could say that, like, I knew that it was time and I left, but like there was a situation that happened where basically my husband at the time was like offered a promotion, and he wanted to take it, and they told him very late that if he took it, we were in the same school, so if he took it, I couldn't stay. And he was like, well, then I'm not going to take it. And I was like, well, maybe this is the kind of push out of the nest that I need, because I do have all this other stuff that I'm curious about and passionate about. And once the decision was final, he was like, my husband at the time was saying, I'm so glad that you made that choice, because I was going to give it about one more year, and then it was going to be time for you to, he was like, I could just see that this is what you're meant to be doing.
Wow.
But obviously it's not his place to like say or make that decision for me. So, I think that sometimes we are pushed in certain directions, and we have to lean into it. But it was, it wasn't this full, like, I know exactly who I am and what, especially then I was like, what, in my 20s? Oh my God, you're not done. You're still baking in your 20s. Please know you are not done cooking.
No.
You don't know anything.
You really don't. I promise.
You know nothing. And that's okay. Like, that, you're supposed to know nothing, but wow. You think you do, but you don't. So anyway, yeah.
What was I going to say about that? When you talked about being your dream turning into your job. Yeah, because that's important. And I think we have to remember, everything you like doesn't have to be a job.
No.
You know what I mean? But I think that's kind of fed to us.
Yes.
If you love something, every day in your life.
Yeah.
That, but you have to say something for yourself,
yes.
I think.
I agree.
But what do you think?
I agree 100%. I was really surprised at the mental toll it took on me when I fully switched over to having writing, acting, and filmmaking sort of being my only job. It suddenly becomes your tether to capitalism, to, it's when you have a job, like at the bookstore, right? Like, that's how I made my money. And there's sort of this, like, I understand, like, yeah, I go into this place, they have my time, they pay me for my time and my skill, and then that's the exchange.
Right.
When my passion, this thing that I love more than almost anything, suddenly also became tied to my ability to pay my bills and like go out to eat sometimes, when it suddenly really shifted my perspective on it. And there is sort of an inherent heightened desperation around it, right? Like, I know, well, I need to book this job. It's not like it would just be cool to do it. Like, your brain and your body are suddenly like, okay, well, this is how you survive. And so for me, I just had to really like sit with that new feeling and come to terms with it and make peace with it. And then also realize that this industry has corners and pockets, and some are more lucrative and commercial, and I can lean into those when I need to, but that doesn't mean I can't also work on things that bring me a lot of joy but maybe don't make me as much money. It's a mosaic. But it also meant that I had to find things that were truly my own and that I don't make money doing. And so I think I didn't really learn that lesson until the strikes hit, and I was unable to basically work at all. I feel very grateful for I Could Dom, because it was something that we filmed right after the writer's strike started, and it was before the actor's strike started. And so it was something that I was working on in post-production throughout that really, really difficult time. But my mental health was really bad because I just tied up so much of my existence in that job, those jobs, that industry. And so then when it was sort of yanked out from under me, I realized that I had not built a well-balanced human life. And I had my relationships, and I had my, my family, my friendships, but in terms of like how to fill my time, people are like, oh, you must be getting so much writing done. I'm like, I am depressed. My brain is churning about just the ability to survive so much. I don't have, like, writing takes a lot of mental energy and clarity and peace, at least for me. Like, if I can't get into that space, it's really hard for me. And when my brain was so knotted with anxiety and depression, like, it was not a creatively fulfilling time for me outside of working on I Could Dump, which at that time, like, that's the editor and the sound, like, they're getting to do the work, and I'm like watching it and being like, I like it. It's not exactly the same kind of like boots on the ground work that being on set is. So I started painting with watercolors. I started going to like a really free like form dance class. Shout out to dance church. I love it. You know, I started learning Spanish. Like I really got more into Duolingo. Shout out to Duolingo. But it was just like, what are things that make me feel like I'm learning, that make me feel in tune with my body, and that make me feel creative and artistic, but it's not monetized and it's not even remote. I'm not good at watercolor. I wasn't doing it so that I could then sell them on Etsy. It's like this is something that I do for me. And there's an honoring of your like inner child, I think, in that, because when we're kids, I think part of the joy of it is that we don't have to pay bills, like, you know, like that, hopefully. And so that idea of just like, what do I want to do just to like fill my time?
Yeah.
You know, like that's something that when we're so busy and hustling all the time, we don't necessarily have those pockets of boredom. And I was finding that I was filling so much of those empty spaces with being on my phone, which like I started categorizing behaviors as things that bring me back to my body and things that take me out of my body. And I think that there are things that take me out of my body in a like nice way and things that take me out of my body in a way that makes me feel bad. Being on my phone takes me out of my body in a way that does not make me feel good. And so I know that for me, I have to like really catch myself. But like dancing puts me in my body, and cooking and eating puts me in my body. Going on walks and like in my body. Acting puts me in my body. Writing takes me out of my body, but in a way that I really like, because that's imagination. And I think like, yeah, painting in some ways takes me out of my body, but in a way that I really like, because it's putting me in a different mental space. So I think that from now until I die, I'll just be evaluating how I'm spending my time, what's putting me in my body, taking me out, does it feel good, does it feel bad, and then adjusting as I need to. And I think that as awful as the strikes have been, and then, you know, coming out of it, it's still bad. Like this contraction is rough. So I think that I've hopefully taken a really rough time that was the result of something I had no control over at all, and it's allowed me to really understand what I need as a person to feel okay on a day-to-day basis. So I guess in a weird way, I'm grateful for that. Ugh.
When did it, is that the only time you've had real time to reflect? Because I think a lot of us don't know, I don't want to say a lot of us don't know ourselves, but those moments where you get to learn more about yourself, like do they only come up when we do have things like the strike or the pandemic, or because for me the pandemic taught me a lot about myself, and it gave me time to sit back and who is Selena? I didn't know who she was, and but then when we're busy, how do we still find those times? Because you have to check in. New information is constantly coming in. We're evolving. We're changing. So how do you find those moments, or do you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we are a culture that has really vilified free time. We've really sort of basically done away with the notion of boredom through technology, because there's always something you can turn on. There's always something you can look at. I think that the reason that the pandemic for everybody, and then the strikes and the contraction for our industry specifically, I think the reason that they were so powerful is that they really made us bored. And they really made us available. And suddenly like our time wasn't constantly filled. And at the end of the day, like, what that allows for is self-reflection. And I think that as a society, we also really vilify discomfort. And self-reflection is often very uncomfortable. As is communication, as is conflict, as is like being bad at something, as is rejection. Like all of these things, and things that we as a society tend to really celebrate, like love, is also uncomfortable. And I think that I am having to check in with myself about whether or not I have allowed myself to like take space, be bored, reflect, be uncomfortable, and see how I feel. And I'm not great at it all the time. I lose hours on my phone, and I'm like, shit, what did I do? But that's the point of it. Somebody's making money off of that time.
Yes.
And as a society, we are in a position where our time and our attention is the most valuable commodity, and people are actively trying to take it from us. And again, we almost have to take this rebellious stance against, you know what? You want my time because you're trying to sell me something, and I am going to take some of that fucking time back and think about myself. And being willing to like not just be distracted and be entertained, but to just actually like sit and think about how am I feeling, how am I doing, what do I want. That's again, it's like it's gonna feel weird at first, it's gonna feel bad at first, but if you keep doing it over time, it starts to just become a part of your like living human practice, and it feels better. Like it's still uncomfortable, and it should be.
Right. That's a conscious choice, right?
Yes.
Because you have a busy life, and I know how this entertainment world is. Do you feel like when I'm out all day or whatever, I feel like a high, or like, how can you come down?
Oh yeah.
How do you come down?
Yeah, I'm a classic extrovert, and so I definitely like get energy being around other people. Yeah, like I going to like a screening, especially if it's like my screening. Yeah, I'm definitely like, there's adrenaline there. I think that for me, coming down off of that adrenaline, first of all, I forgive myself for when it takes a long time. Like, I think that if I'm like trying to be like, calm down, stop, like that doesn't work. That's just me being mean to myself, and arguably like some really pure, delighted part of me that's just still excited about what we got to experience. So I think the first thing is like I forgive myself for when I'm still like amped up for a while, and then I think it's just me learning like what are the things that my favorite ways to take care of myself. I'm living alone for the first time ever in my life, and it's been fascinating to discern the difference between like when I'm lonely and I need to stay alone and take care of myself versus I just haven't been around people in a while and I need to like recharge that battery, and so I do need to reach out to someone right now. Like it's a very subtle difference, but I think me really leaning into the lonely times, I've been able to really understand what kinds of things bring me peace, what kinds of things make me feel very much myself and cared for by only myself. And those are the same strategies that I can use when I'm like coming off of this like weird high. I love reading. Like I've loved that since I was a kid. I love to cook. I've started to, if I'm feeling lonely, I like make myself a really nice dinner. I treat myself real good. I just think about what are the things that I can use to care for myself when I'm on a high or when I'm on a low. And I think it's interestingly, they're kind of the same things because they're bringing me back to my body, back to myself, back to a sense of like balance and equilibrium. So I think that weirdly, what you do in the hard times can really help for like how to sort of recalibrate after something joyful or at least exciting in some direction as well.
Yeah. Real quick, I love books. What pulls you? What are you drawn to for books? Like, is it fiction, nonfiction?
Yeah, big fiction bitch here. I mean, there are some. I've read nonfiction that is obviously incredible. I think it's such a cool art form as well. But I love stories and I love fiction. I have felt honestly since COVID, and I've heard this from multiple people, I've struggled to read books.
Me too. I've never heard this though.
I think that we don't have a strong sense of what COVID does to the brain, but it definitely does something because like we couldn't smell or taste, and that's like a brain thing. So I think that there's just been some shifting that happened there. I have to accept that is a new reality for me. My brain feels different. So I'm trying to sort of lower that barrier to re-entry and just really focus on things that do pull me in,
Yeah.
that do make me excited to read. Right now, I'm reading rom-coms. Like, I am reading
Okay.
books that are like romantic and funny and sexy, and that shit brings me joy. And it also is inspiring for me as someone who writes rom-coms. You know, like, I love to see how other people are crafting a story. How are they crafting characters? How are they building tension? Like, I don't want to say that doing that is, it's not research, but I also, like, I enjoy that it does touch on my own work and my own storytelling in a way that's very inspiring. So I love that. I will also say that short stories were really helpful for me in the aftermath of COVID because that felt easier. A short story is, in the same way that a short film is, like, such a treasure of a story, because you really have to be so economical with your words, with the time that you have. And I'm just so impressed with a good short story.
Yeah.
I'm also obviously impressed with a good novel. Like, holy shit, I could never. But a novel, you have the time and space.
Right.
In the same way with a feature, you
Right.
got the time and space. To get a full story across in a short film or a short story is, like, so beautifully, it's like surgical, but it feels like magic. I mean, it is. I'm so enamored with short form right now, generally. But that was a really nice, like, sort of bridge for me to be like, okay, I can read. Like, I know how to do it. I can read. But yeah, there's definitely something going on with how COVID affects our attention, focus, whatever. You know, and also we're being affected by our technology, and we're being affected by the stress of just living through this time. Like, it's all, there's no one clear answer.
Right.
But I do know that I love reading, and so
Yeah.
I'm like, get me in there.
It's I'm like shocked at how little I can read now. It's like 2 pages or 3 pages, and I'm like, I need a break. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on what you said earlier about loneliness. How do you decipher between I need to be around people and I'm lonely?
Yeah. I think for me, I have a sense of what I've done recently. You know, like, I can be like, okay. And as someone who, I don't go into an office, you know, like, unless I'm on set, like, my work, it's my work. My work is, you know, usually writing based, or pre-production or whatever. So it's a lot of me on my own, doing auditions. I usually just do them alone. So I don't have, like, a necessarily steady practice of, like, seeing other people every day.
Right.
So I can think back on, okay, when was the last time that I was, like, out in public or, you know, around a large group of people? And if it's been a while, then I can say, okay, you know, what I'm feeling is definitely my extrovert battery is low, and I need to, you know, I want to be surrounded by people because I want to see other people. When I am lonely and I know I need to be by myself, it is that feeling of, I just don't want to be by myself. And that is uncomfortable. And those are the moments when I realize, if I were to reach out to somebody, that would be me shying away from being with my thoughts. And I'm trying to protect myself. I'm trying to not do whatever work needs to be done, or just, you know, whatever check-in needs to be had. And that's when I have to say, okay, I need to cook something and eat, maybe watch something that makes me feel comfortable, read, write, paint my watercolors, like, turn on some music and dance, do a little bit of, like, yoga or something. You know, like, it's when what I am craving is to just not be by myself versus I want to be around other people. Like, that's such, it almost sounds like I'm saying the same sentence.
I get it.
They're two different sentences and they're two different feelings. And sometimes I fuck up, right? Sometimes I definitely, like, reached out to people because I didn't want to be by myself. And sometimes I've, like, needed to be by myself, and now I'm like, oh, look, I don't actually want to be around all these people right now. Like, oopsie. Or or maybe I go too long without seeing people. You know, like, I'm not perfect at this, and I'm again, I just started living by myself, so I'm really learning. But I think, I think that we're taught that, like, being by ourselves is a bad thing, and that loneliness is a bad thing, and I just don't think that it is, and I think we can stop pathologizing it so much. And I think if we stopped pathologizing it, it would actually help people who maybe are struggling with feeling loneliness and not being around people enough to feel a little better about like getting back out there. Because I think when we like tell these people that they're sick and they're, you know, like there's something wrong with you because you're alone too much, it's like, well then, well, if there's something wrong with me, why would I want to subject someone else to that? And it's like, no, that's not it at all. So I want to get more comfortable with being alone and just with myself. And I don't think that I could do this now without all the work that I did, not being as lonely, you know, like being in a partnership and having all this stuff, you know, like I did a lot of work on myself, and I think it prepared me well for this new chapter.
Yeah. I'm glad you did that because yes. But I want to say just for the audience, like so many of us work remotely now, and like, we do have a lot of alone time.
Yeah.
And so I think that distinguishing what you just said, like feeling lonely versus no, it's fair that you want to be around people right now because I live alone as well and working remotely. It's like I need to talk. I need to see another human. Like this is not normal.
Yes.
So it's not always like this bad thing that you do want to be around people.
Right. No.
And but then shifting gears a bit, I wanted to ask you about being around people. So in this industry, we're meeting all these different people. Sets have so many different personalities. So many like. Oh, so how do you navigate these different personalities on set or whatever? And then also, not that anyone's bad, but all personalities don't gel. Yeah. But you're stuck for however many months. So how do you navigate those?
Yeah. I think that's something that I've had to work on. I am a people pleaser. I Could Dom, the film we mentioned earlier, we call it a sex comedy for people pleasers. It's definitely about that side of myself. And part of people pleasing generally is this sort of belief and conviction that part of my job is to make sure that everybody is having a good time and feeling okay. And so I spent a lot of my life doing a lot of like intuitive, emotional, like temperature checking. And I'm talking about any, like with my family, with my friends, in classrooms, in, you know, in improv, comedy settings, you know, then on set, it was like, and that's such actually a self-centering practice because it's like, oh, I am in charge of how people are feeling. I can impact the vibe of this entire environment. Who the fuck do you think
pressure.
You are? Yeah, but I mean, it is this weird, like, because you're doing it as a way to make other people feel good, but it is this pressure that you then put on yourself to, like, be the sole arbiter of the vibe on set, and that is insane. So, first of all, it is not my job, ever, to make everyone feel good all the time. Now, that also does not mean that I'm not aware of when someone is not feeling good or I can tell that something is wrong. We also have to be sort of courageous enough to approach someone and be like, is everything okay? Is there something I can do? And sometimes the answer is yes, and sometimes the answer is no. And we have to be okay with the answer being no sometimes. I think that when I have a sense of, you know, leadership on a set, I want to try to avoid as much, you know, bad feeling as possible, just because I think our work is better and our, you know, art is better when everyone is feeling as good as possible. And so some of the ways that I do that is that I really want to come in with a vision that is really clear and communicated clearly, but also leave room for meaningful collaboration and ideas from my team. Because realistically, if I, you know, as the director, I kind of oversee everything, but I don't know about sound. You know, like I don't know about, you know, like I'm not trained in art or wardrobe or makeup, you know, like these people have a skill set and an expertise in this particular area. It is my job as the director to put together an amazing team and then let them do their jobs. And I think a lot of times when I've seen strife in, a film setting, it comes from someone or several people holding too tightly to a vision that is potentially simultaneously not being well communicated. And I think for a while I thought that having a strong vision was sort of always a detriment to a project, but I've come to understand that a strong vision can really be a gift because it allows everyone to coalesce around something. It's just that you have to be gentle and loose enough with it that people feel included and not trapped. And I think that that's just something that I'll be learning forever in any leadership setting. But I think that when people feel heard, when it feels like their skill set is being respected and appreciated, when you give them good fucking food, like when you take care of them as artists and as people, that goes a long way. And even in a stressful situation, I do work really, really hard to stay calm myself and stay positive myself, because especially when I'm a leader on set, like I am leading the artistic vision, but I am also leading the feeling. And I've had people say, it's like, when my director is in a bad mood, I feel like I have to be in a bad mood. That's like, you feel like you gotta get in line behind that.
Right.
And so I know I cannot control how everyone is feeling. It is not my job to make sure that everyone is feeling good all the time. But as a leader, I do feel like it is one of my jobs to set a tone. And sometimes that can really help everybody fall, behind me and be like, okay, this is stressful and we're moving real fast and things are going wrong and mistakes are being made. But if she's still smiling and having a good time and at least pretending to have fun, then I guess it's gonna be okay. And at the end of the day, this is supposed to be fun. Like, we're making movies. So even when it's stressful, I do try to remember for myself and then allow that to be contagious to others, that like we're having a good time.
It's a tricky business because it's fun, but then there's a lot of money at stake a lot of times. For those people who've invested, we want to see return on our investment. To work and work hard.
But I think that I think probably the best set I've ever been on was for the show Atlanta, and working with Hiro Murai on an episode. And obviously that's a big show, lots of money at stake. We were in season 3, so obviously there was like already, an expectation of like what that show is and how it performs. But I thought that he did such an incredible job of making the set very efficient and very fast, but also like it never felt pushed or stressful, and he was always sure to give us time to play. Like every scene, he was like, okay, have fun on this one. Like, and that, it doesn't actually take that much more time to do it one more time and have a little bit of fun, but the impact that has on your team to be like, oh, we still have room for joy, like we still have room for experimentation and play, that's huge. And so he was a director that really taught me that coming in with a clear vision and allowing everybody to work efficiently around that can be such a gift, and it doesn't preclude you allowing for people to play and explore and be curious and see what you can find. You can make time for that if it is of value to you. And I think that obviously he was in a position where he was already like very trusted by that network and by the producers, but even so, it was really cool to see someone who I know knows exactly what the show is supposed to be still give his team an opportunity to try something new and see what happened. I loved that. I loved working on that show.
That sounds wonderful. I have so many questions. I know we're coming up on time. I want to ask my success question and my happiness question.
Yes.
But,
oh my God, the whole thing. The point of the show.
But really quickly, I wanted to ask before I finish those. How do you handle creative differences? Like if it's like I know you write, if you're directing, acting, whatever, and sometimes we're artists and we are sensitive, and sometimes that vision, some ideas you do get married to. So how do you deal with creative differences, and when do you cut the?
So for me, I tend to hold everything pretty loosely because I know that as a writer, for a while you're working on the script with just yourself, or maybe you and one or two other people. And it feels very yours because it is. Up until that point, it literally is yours. But I know, because I'm also a filmmaker, that the point of a script is for it to be given up to a team and to become something else. And because I've done that so many times, I think it does allow me to have a looser grip on pretty much everything, which is hard. That takes time and practice. It does not happen overnight. So that's part of it, is that I don't avoid creative differences. I don't avoid criticism or differing opinions. I do try to have a sense all the time of what is the story that we are trying to tell? What is essential about it? And if I'm getting feedback or criticism or, direction that I feel like is antithetical to that essence, that is usually something I'm willing to push back on.
Okay.
If it is something that is just like a different, way of approaching this character or telling a joke, or narratively, I think it would be stronger if we did this versus this. Because I've got a looser grip on the story, I can really look at it objectively and be like, oh, yeah, I can totally see that. It's not how I did it. It's not how my brain came up with it first. But that doesn't mean that it's anti my story. So I think that part of what I have to do, and I guess I'm really focusing on writing right now, is be really clear with myself and with my team about what is the essence of this story and what sort of feels untouchable in it. And it's very rare that line to line there's something untouchable. It's more about what is the theme, what is that journey, what is that tone. So that's one thing. And then, I think that if you're in a situation where you and another person have a completely different view of what is essential about that story, then that's not the person to tell that story with. And, that's a difficult thing to do, but also I'm a big believer in the fact that, like, we have relationships with people and they ebb and flow, and we have different chapters in our relationships, and maybe sometimes you're working together really well and sometimes you're not, and that doesn't mean that you hate each other or that you have to like split up in every way forever. Like, I think, again, it's like keeping a loose grip on your relationships too, allowing them to change because you as individual people are changed. I keep a loose grip on myself because who I am is gonna, if I'm holding too tightly to anything, it will stop me from growing. It will stop my relationship from evolving the way it needs to, and it will stop my work from becoming what it needs to be to speak to people most effectively and achieve its goals most, efficiently. So I think, I guess my advice is loosen your grip on all of it and just see what happens. But it's hard. Again, it's a practice. But you can start with yourself. And I think that's what's cool. It's like if you start by loosening your grip on who am I and what is possible for me, then it becomes loosening your grip on, all the different extensions of who you are and what you touch in the world. It makes it all the easier to do that.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. That's wonderful. That's something I struggle with. But I used to think it was a load of crap when groups broke up and they'd say, "Oh, we had creative differences." Until I got into, I was like, "Oh, that's real."
Yeah.
Like, you can really have because you're so attached. If you get too attached, and then that rigidity, you're gonna have real problems. Not all this, but that's been my experience. So
for sure.
Okay. What's your definition of success?
Okay, I've always said, and I feel like I've said this a lot, but for me in this industry, I have always said that I'm trying to do two things. One, I am trying to pay my bills. I would like to pay my bills doing the work that I love to do. That is, in some ways, a very high bar, but in some ways, a very manageable bar. And so that is one. And the second thing I'm trying to do is chase delight. And delight is a word that I speak to myself a lot, and I say out loud a lot because it is achievable. Sometimes joy feels big. Like sometimes like the idea of like consistent joy, consistent happiness, consistent contentment overwhelms me. But delight can be very ephemeral. It can be very like a flash in the pan, you know, like it's something that you can sort of chase and capture, and then you let it go. Like delight is not a sustained state of being, but it is sort of infinite in its ability to be captured. So I chase delight in the kinds of things that I write, in the kinds of films that I make, in the relationships that I build, both professionally and personally, in the ways that I treat myself. How do I delight myself on a day-to-day basis? I'm going to dance church. I'm painting my colors. You know, like delight to me is achievable even in a dark time because it is smaller than joy. And I like that about it. So I think that allowing that feeling to exist for myself and also trusting that if I am delighted, it's going to delight someone else too. And yeah, but when I sit down to write or make anything, the first person I'm trying to please is me. And I think that that's so important because when we get lost in the commerciality of this business and like, oh, what's the audience, blah, 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 blah. If you make it true to you and authentic to you and specific to you and delightful to you, the audience is going to find it because we're all a lot more alike than we were taught to believe.
Yeah. I think you answered it, but when are you the absolute happiest?
When am I the happiest? I don't know if I have answered that. I do feel happiest being around people. I know that to be true. I feel happiest when we feel also like connected over something. So whether that is on a film set and we're all working towards a shared goal, or maybe we're like at a party and all celebrating the same person or the same thing, or, you know, maybe we're in like a class, you know, like a class and we're all like learning something together. I think being around people, feeling connected towards a common purpose, and doing it in such a way where everybody gets to feel like they can be truly themselves, that is when I feel the happiest. And whether that's with one other person or 1,000 other people, you know, like it's the size of the crowd doesn't matter. But I know that for myself, as much as I am working on being comfortable being alone and loving myself in those spaces too, I know that for me, being around other people is really important. And so, yeah, are we together and are we in the same purpose, and are we all getting to feel like who we really are and comfortable enough to be who we really are? That's the dream.
That's wonderful. That is wonderful when we can be ourselves.
Yes, well, imagine.
There's so many mess.
Yeah, we do. And like it's I do sort of think that sometimes life is just a slow march towards death, but also as we do, we realize like what are we carrying that we don't need to, and by the time I get to that place, whenever it is, wherever it is, I want to feel like I lived as much of my life as possible as the truest version of myself at any particular time.
Yeah.
And who I am at the end of the line and who I started, like there are things that are going to be very different, but I think that there are things that are consistent with us. And so yeah, I think being the kind of person that people feel like they can take their mask off around and be themselves around, that is so important to me.
Yeah.
And creating work that allows people to like come home to themselves, that is like the dream for me. Like a thing that you watch when you want to feel better about yourself, about the world, that's such a pie in the sky like dream for me, but that is definitely like a North Star, is being a person that people feel comfortable around and making work that makes people feel comfortable with themselves and brings them comfort maybe in a time when they're struggling.
Yeah. And a lot of shows and a lot of art period has done that for me. I don't know where we would be without art.
I don't know either. It's almost like we should fund it. It's almost like we should value it as a profession and not see it as this frivolous thing that these weird people like to do. Because what does a doctor do at the end of a hard day? What does a politician do at the end of a hard day? You know, like they're reading a poem, they're watching their favorite show, they're going to see a movie with their family, they're maybe like looking at a piece of art that they bought ages ago that just makes them feel better. You know, like it's we devalue this entire ecosystem of very important human work because it doesn't I don't know, like it does make
Yeah,
money.
I
I don't know.
say,
It's like
it
it makes
does.
money too, but it is this weird thing of like I am seen as less valuable to society as certain other jobs, and some of them I am. I do not pretend that I supersede doctors. I'm not that delusional, but yeah, this idea that we do not deserve the same kind of support, funding, respect, appreciation because we love what we do.
Yeah.
Weird.
I know. And music and all that.
Music,
it's
yeah,
like,
just a big one.
yeah, like, because I'm like, I don't understand. Even when I was growing up, I didn't pursue it as much because it was seen as like some court gesture or something.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, no, this is important work, and I think we take it for granted as a society because there's so much.
Yes.
And because it looks, and then when you're on the outside looking in, it just looks like fun but it's real work.
Yeah.
These are long days, and you give so much of yourself. And even like if you do something short, it takes a lot. I can't speak for you, but it takes a lot out of you.
Yes.
And it's not in a bad way. I still feel fulfilled, but it's not some like, oh, I'll just go act real quick and then go home. Like, and it's like, no, there's like, you build this character, you just put so much into, you give all of yourself.
Yes.
And for it to be treated like some joke is like crazy.
Yeah.
And it's just so dismissive.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to sound whiny. It does sound a little whiny.
No, I can whine about it. It's annoying. It is annoying when the job that I do is sort of considered like a hobby to people, and then at the same time, in the same breath, they'll like talk about this amazing album that they've been listening to, or this movie that they went to see, or this show that they like have watched a million times. And I'm like, you understand that every single person who worked on those things that you love, you are saying that it's a hobby. You're saying it's not a real job. Like it's just a weird sort of disconnect. And I think that the pandemic also really illustrated for us how much we turn to art, because obviously everybody's at home. We're all watching TV. We're all listening to music. We're all reading. We're all like it was like, oh yeah, this is essential human work. And I do think that obviously language, but also storytelling is a huge part of what makes us unique as a species. And going beyond that, communal storytelling, where we have opportunities to be together and experience a story together. I think that's why I love movies so much, is because theater is obviously the most, I think, pure form of communal storytelling, because you, the audience, and the actors, the artists are there together. Same with like live music. But movies are our most portable communal storytelling, right? We can send the same story to a lot of places at once, and yet we still gather together with strangers, with our friends, with our families in this large group and experience that together. I think that that's so special. And I think we need it as people. And television, and then especially like our phones, it's kind of pulling us away from that more essential human instinct. And I do think it's telling, though, that like they keep saying that the cinema is going to die, that that their movie theaters are dead, and they're not. People keep coming, because I think we actually do really need those communal storytelling spaces. And it's not just about making money, and it's not just about like having something to do. I think that there is a primordial itch that we are scratching when we sit and experience a story with strangers, and that is never going to go away, because it's just baked right in. And so I have a huge amount of respect for that, and I think a lot of people, they do respect it, they just don't necessarily realize it.
Right.
And I think the powers that be, they want people to be content with doing these sort of underappreciated, underpaid jobs that allow them to continue making a bunch of money. And if we have a society that values loving what you do and working in such a way that allows you to feel passion and joy, you lose that labor force, because then people are like, well, I don't want to do that anymore. Like it's all this, like, again, it's this big lie to make us complacent in a less than ideal situation, to make someone else's ideal situation
Yeah.
more and more and more comfortable. And yeah, and so I think the devaluation of arts is also to try to break the spirit of the labor force.
Oh my gosh.
It's so dark and bleak, but like,
that's gonna make me start thinking about conspiracies
yeah.
because I have the anyways, I have conspiracies about AI and all this stuff, but
Yes.
because it's so true when you do pursue it, it brings you this feeling that nothing. Well, I can't speak for you, but for me, a feeling that I don't get anywhere else.
Yeah.
That I can't. That does not exist, and is the most fulfilling and rewarding feeling I could ever feel. So to take that away, is strategically is crazy.
Yeah, fascinating to me that AI has been pushed in directions of AI learned to write stories, AI learned to paint pictures, AI learned to make music, versus AI learned to like do jobs that hurt people, that make that break people's bodies, learn how to like save the ocean. You know, it's like, and I'm sure that research is being done, but a lot of what we're seeing is technology taking over these artistic spaces. And I mean, it is kind of conspiracy theory-ish, but like, it does seem to be this concerted effort to break the human spirit and reduce us to labor for a larger corporation, whatever, and we exist only to make the rich richer. And when you strip art away from us, like, it kind of is all that's left. And it does kind of feel like it's by design.
I really
we're on to you.
I think because when we were growing up, because I'm around the same age as you, this business was so glamorized. And then now I feel like the narrative is like, it's a bad job. You don't want to do this. Look at all the strikes. Look at it's so hard. You'll never make like. And I have thought that that's part of like being a conspiracy. Like you don't want this job. It's gross. It's the worst job you've ever had. And then I'm like, I'm not going to believe that, but maybe it is because when I was growing up, it was the most glamorous job you could ever have.
Yeah, and the glamour is still there. And I think part of it is, too, this idea that, like, the only way to be successful in this industry is if you're one of those people at the very top.
And that's not true.
And that's not true at all. And so I think that the glamorizing also works to sort of like both weirdly attract and also deter people, because it's like, oh, well, only a few people get to do that. So I guess maybe I can't. I think that we have to, as time marches on and as our economy shifts and transforms into something that I personally think is kind of uglier and uglier and less human, we have to start, I think, like you're doing on this podcast, recalibrating what it means to be successful, recalibrating what it looks like to be in an artistic community, to make work, and what does that mean for that work to be successful. I know that for me, making a lot of money is not a core value of why I do this job. Making work that people can see and enjoy and feel seen by is. And so I think that there is a way to think truly expansively and creatively about what it means to be an artistic community. And I think that as time goes on, what we are learning is that our communities, the people right here around us, they are going to be our most important for our physical survival, as well as our emotional well-being, as well as our artistic endeavors, as well as, like, it is who is here with me. What are we able to create together? How are we able to sustain each other? And when that becomes the focus, as opposed to the biggest, the brightest, the best, the largest, the richest, like when we divorce ourselves from that line of thinking, right, that capitalist, like, infinite growth mindset, and we return to sustainability, literal sustenance, emotional and physical, what can we make, and what kind of life can we live? And maybe it'll feel a little less hard, a little less chaotic, because it's something that we're doing together, and we're taking care of each other. I don't know, like that pie in the sky. I'm an idealist, but I truly believe that there is a future for art that is more inclusive and less exploitative and more humane, compassionate, sustainable. I really believe that.
I think we have to.
Yeah.
I don't think we have a choice. I mean, everybody can do whatever they want, but I'm 100% in agreement with you. And I also, the reason for the show too is exposure. Because when I told you I moved to LA, I'm from Maryland, and I didn't know any artists. Like, I mean, a little bit, but you know, I only thought you could be Meryl Streep or Denzel Washington or you know. So I didn't know all the levels. I wasn't exposed. I didn't know. No one in my family knew. And when I moved to LA, I met all these people living their dream who no one had heard of, and they didn't care. They're living in their in what feels the truest to themselves, and they're paying their bills. And when I saw that, I was like, what? What are you talking about? And it made it feel more attainable, more realistic. And you just get to the level, dream how big you want to dream, but you'll get to the level where you're supposed to go. But you have to know that those levels are available to you. Because everybody, the truth is, everyone isn't going to be Denzel Washington. Everyone's not. And everyone should even, that's a lot to deal with. I don't even know, but whatever. The point is, there's more options, and that's what I want to expose. In because I had someone in tech last week, and I met a woman who's behind the camera on the shows. And as a little girl, a little baby Selena didn't think, oh, I could be in tech, or I could be a camera person, or because you don't see it, and you can't see yourself in something that you don't know exists. And there's so many options available to us. I don't want people to get stuck in, oh, I can only be an athlete or the biggest singer or the biggest Steve Jobs, you know, or Elon Musk. There's so much in between where you are and there, and that is available to you. And I'm so passionate about follow your heart. You may find something along the way that looks different than what you thought, but it's perfect for you. So just listen. I promise it'll get you somewhere. But I'm very passionate about following your dreams. That's why the whole show.
And that's so important. And I love that that's the focus of the show, because you're so right. And I think that goes back to the loose grip that I was talking about. It's like if you're holding so hard to, I'm going to be Meryl Streep, you're probably going to be disappointed because there's only one of her. And getting to that level it's a game of opportunity, luck, chance, obviously talent and preparation too. But if you're holding too tightly to a particular image of what that dream is, you might miss out on this opportunity along the way to find something that maybe aligns more with who you are in that chapter of your life, and also the willingness to move on from that if it no longer feels aligned with you. Like, I think we're the first generation that really does kind of bounce around professionally a little bit more. You know, our parents, it was very much like you found something and you stayed. And I think it makes them nervous when we're like, well, now I'm doing this, and now and they're like, you're doing what? What's your retire? What's the 401k? And I'm like, well, you know, I'll act until I die, Mom. Like, it's not a big deal. Anyway, but I think that we are the first generation to be willing to bounce around. We sort of have been fed false promises about the economy and about what our lives would look like. And so it's like, well, if I'm not going to be able to afford a house, and I'm not going to be able to retire, and I'm not going to have Social Security probably, and I can't afford any of this, then the fuck am I doing if not doing something that I actually like in an environment that isn't toxic to me? You know, so I think that we have a willingness to abandon and give up a particular situation in favor of something that feels more aligned with who we are in that moment. And I think that's good.
I think so too. And I think it's a domino effect of, like, it's gonna affect the people around you, good or bad. I was in a job where I felt like my soul was crushed every single day, and I would never do that again. You know what I mean? This making these decisions it's not easy, right? But it's in my opinion, I think it's worth it. It's hard, but I think it's so worth it, what you get in return, and just feeling so fulfilled, you know?
Absolutely. And I think that there are also people who are different from me, who are resilient in a way that I am not, who are able to withstand a job that maybe is really unfulfilling for them, taxing, potentially toxic, but it affords them the opportunity to live a life and travel and eat and support their families. You know, like I think that there are people for whom that their priorities are a little bit different than mine, and that doesn't make them wrong and me right, or me wrong and them right. I think that also recognizing that there are people who are different. I think there's a book, and I never really read it, but it's like orchids versus dandelions, and sort of this like idea that some people are lean orchid, which is like sensitive, and we need to be in an environment that like allows us to thrive, and we need a lot of care and attention from ourselves and from other people. And dandelions are hardy, they're resilient, they can grow anywhere, and they can kind of just be fine and good. And like people, I think, kind of sometimes lean one direction or the other, and I think I have phases of my life where I've leaned one direction or the other. But yeah, just recognizing like, do I need to change my environment to allow myself to thrive? Like, am I putting myself in a place where I'm really harming myself just trying to survive? And then sometimes I might feel like, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna tough this shit out for a while because I'm making a lot of money and I'm getting what I need, and I'll know when it's time to go.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, because I have friends who I know they're staying at their job for 20 years and they're really happy, and even if they don't like their job, they like what it affords them. And I respect that. That's their value system, and that's what's important to them. So I never ever want anyone to feel like that I'm saying your decisions are bad because they're different than mine. No. I truly respect that.
Yeah, I admire that. I'm like,
I wish I could be like that.
I would like to be that, please.
I wish I could.
Can I have that?
It's much more stable, less chaotic.
Yeah. Oh, they can predict their schedule. So weird. What's that
like? To even plan a vacation.
Yeah.
You don't know what's gonna happen. You know, and whatever. That's what a life. We all make our beds. You know.
We do. Yes. So we make our beds. We lie in them, awake at night for hours, wondering, this bed? Why this one?
Am I doing the right thing? I'm spiritual in a sense, and I ask the universe. I'm like, is this right?
Yeah.
Are you sure? Can you confirm again? I've already confirmed. I need another one. Another confirmation.
Please.
Because I'm confused.
I'm
scared.
Yes.
But we're here. I'm going to close this out. Wait, do you have anything else?
No, I don't think so. I've talked so much. I love to talk. So big yapper. So this is great. Yeah, I have nothing else to say besides the answer to whatever your closing
That was it.
Oh, great. We're done.
I appreciate everything you've said, because I think you say things that are very important. When I heard you on the panel, you said things that stuck with me. In particular, making sure that people feel safe on set. And I did P-Valley background, but they were very cautious about making sure that all of us felt safe. And you came into my mind of like, it's not that hard. Like, and it's important to make sure, especially on a set like P-Valley.
Yes.
In particular, and the actors and everyone and the background work actors are making sure that everyone feels great, and they did that. So I'm really appreciative of that. And it's just, I don't know, for whatever reason, that part of, I remember a lot of what you said, but for whatever reason, that really stuck with me of like making sure everyone feels safe and good on set. And that's why I asked about the personalities too.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of people on set.
Yes.
And everyone's not going to, well, you want everyone to get along, but you just never know.
You can't control that.
Never know.
You can't control that. Yeah, so, I think safety, and I didn't mention it in my answer earlier, but that to me is like the bare minimum, is that everyone's feeling safe, both emotionally and physically, especially on a set like P-Valley, and, you know, I've been doing like sex comedy sort of stuff, so that's important for me too. But yeah, it's like, that's the bare minimum, and unfortunately a lot of sets are not even meeting that. But yeah, for me it's like, because we can't go beyond that. If you're in a situation where you don't feel safe, you're not able to access your creativity, your sense of self, your sense of, you know, confidence, purpose, like all of that it's basically not accessible, because you have not met the basic need of people feeling safe. And so I think if you want art that like allows people to, you know, perform or whatever at their full potential, allowing people to feel safe and setting that as a priority is essential. And I do think a lot of people in the arts understand that, but not everybody. And I think especially people who are not artists themselves don't necessarily understand how important that is, which is why you gotta have artists on your sets, and it has to be a true collaboration and not just the people with the money dictating everything, because they have a different set of values that got them where they are, and respect, maybe, I don't know. But, you know, it's like their value system is different, and so they have to be willing to collaborate with the people actually boots on the ground doing the thing.
Right.
And say, this is what we need in order to give you the product that you're looking for, to make the money that you value more than anything else.
Anything else in the world. And I'll say one last thing, I promise.
Yes.
What they said on the set too was, they said this, like you said, collaborative, like the communication works both ways. We don't know if you're not feeling safe if you don't tell us.
Yes.
So it's also, they didn't say your responsibility, but that it is your responsibility, because if someone doesn't know that they're doing something to offend you or make you not feel safe, they can't stop.
Yeah.
But if you say something and it doesn't, you know, that can be hard to speak up for yourself. I'm not saying it's easy, especially when you are around people who have all power, and then you might be, you know, first day on set or whatever, you're like, I'm feeling unsafe, like, you know, but you gotta have that courage, because then if you feel that way, you might leave the industry over this, or you go back and someone's in trouble for something they didn't even know they did. I'm not saying people don't do egregious things,
of course,
but I think most, I like to live in this optimistic world where I think most people don't mean you harm.
No.
And if you say something and then they ignore you, that's another conversation.
That becomes a different thing.
But it's a two-way street, and 100%. You have to speak up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
And that's, again, like leading into discomfort. It's uncomfortable to speak up for yourself in an environment where you maybe feel like you're, you know, low on the ladder, and especially if you're having to speak up about something that someone higher on the ladder has said or done. But you're exactly right. We cannot know what the intentions of a person are if we are not super clear about the harm that's been done. And there's a way to do it calmly, respectfully. And then how they respond to that is how you form your opinion of them. But I cannot, and I really work hard to, not to try to form a solid opinion of a person before I'm very sure that their wrongdoing or whatever has been made clear to them. Because you're right. Some people, no one's ever told them that that's not cool. And it's because said environments can sometimes breed this environment of, well, no, you can't say that, and you know, you don't want to rock the boat because there's a hierarchy. But being able to lean into the discomfort, and maybe if you can't talk to them directly, you talk to someone in the middle of the ladder and see what they can do. And then, you know, but you're exactly right. Like it is a two-way street, safety, comfort, and we gotta be willing to be a little brave. Yeah. Say what we need. Yeah, and it's all the time.
I don't know if it's I don't know if I say politics, but there's a way to do it. Like you said, that's important too. I think getting into this business, the young artists, including myself, because I'm still very new on like a big set or newborn sets or whatever. So there's figuring out how to navigate things and not just, like, I wouldn't just throw out, I'm not feeling safe. Like, I don't think that's the right approach either. No. Because it's still a business, there's still professionalism. And like you said, find who you can trust to talk to, and at the right time. You know, everybody's on a schedule. There's just so much to it. Pay attention. I'm not saying go in there and like scream it, snatch the director's mic. I'm not saying, but do it in a way, you know, that's appropriate, I guess. Finding that way.
100%.
Well, I feel like we did it. I could ask you questions all day, because I feel like I said, it feels like a wealth of knowledge.
Oh, thank you. That's really kind of you.
I'm so glad that you came and talked to me in the audience. Not the audience, the listeners. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm just old school. I don't want to say. But I'll close this out. Thank you, Madison Hatfield, for sharing your time with me and inspiring listeners to redefine success for themselves. You can find out more about Madison on...
I have Instagram at madhat31. It's pretty much just a professional website at this point, because I hate social media, but I'm gotta have it for now. And then I do have a website, madisonhatfield.com. Will I have updated it recently? I don't know. That's a little gamble for you to figure out. And you can find out most everything you need to know from there. But I did want to say thank you so much to you for taking the time to talk to me and to also just do this. I think that it's so important for us to find ways to meet people and learn from people, and also like share what we've learned. And I admire anybody who puts in the time, the effort, the investment to create a new space for people to share I really admire that so much. So thank you for the
Thank
time
you.
and energy and intention that you've put into today and every interview that you've done.
I'm gonna cry. No one's ever said that. Thank you for making me feel seen. You worked really hard.
She works really hard. I can see it. She works really hard.
But you do too, so I'm not taking away from it.
No, of course.
Yeah,
we
we're all-
both work hard.
We're just out here, just chasing the dream, living the dream. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Again, I ask that you subscribe. It will help the show. I promise. It really does help. Just clicking that button, 2 seconds, and if you share it with someone, tell them to subscribe. It really, 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 really helps the show. And it helps me to keep living my dream and sharing knowledge with you all. So, and I ask the guests to say their tagline. It's a little long.
Okay. I'm ready.
But we'll show you our definition of success if you show us yours.
Okay. We'll show you our definition of success if you show us yours.
Yay, thank you so much. We did it.